Welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show, brought to you by Bull Realty, the show for property owners and business leaders. Host Michael Bull brings you market analysis, advice, and opportunities around Atlanta.
Welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about multifamily. You know, the multifamily market in Atlanta has been crazy. We've all seen cranes everywhere, lots of new development, and it seems like we thought it would slow down a little bit here in our shop because we saw a lot of land to new developers, but it seems like it's still moving forward. We have several deals under contract, going through zoning, going through the process to get permitting, and it seems to keep going. The demand for buying the apartments is strong. The tenant demand is strong. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen in the future? Are we going to see more new supply? Are the rents still going to stay strong? Let's find out. Let's talk to Jay Parsons. He's Director of Analytics with RealPage, and he's joining us on Skype. Jay, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Well, Jay, what has happened with performance of multifamily in Atlanta? From my desk, it seems like our market has been doing extremely well.
Yeah, the market's definitely doing well, but it's not as blazing hot as it was a few quarters ago or a year ago. It had been in an unusual position of being among the nation's leaders in rent growth. We're now seeing rent growth around 3.1%. So a little bit of moderation or normalization with so much supply coming in. Atlanta was a market that was a little bit later to get supply going, but there's, as you know, plenty of construction going on now.
Right. And what do you think about B versus A? It seems like there's a lot of people kind of looking for maybe the suburban properties or the kind of the B and even C.
Yeah, obviously you're seeing a big urban-suburban gap. Just like the rest of the country, most of the construction is concentrated in the urban areas, downtown, midtown, Buckhead. And so a lot of the opportunities are going to be in the suburbs. And I think what's happened in this cycle, not only in Atlanta but across the country, is that when you do go to the suburbs, investors and developers are looking more and more, they want to be more selective, whereas in past cycles, growth markets like Atlanta, people would just try to get in the metro somewhere and get in maybe not the great location. So there's a lot of interest now in getting to those key suburbs. But as you know, that's where you run into NIMBYism. You have restrictive zoning, you got city councils that don't want you to build apartments there. And so it's pretty tough. I mean, everybody wants to go to places like Alpharetta, but Alpharetta doesn't necessarily want you there.
That's right. It's hard to build in a lot of these markets, which is great for the owners of these properties and the developers when we get them done. And so what do you expect moving forward for performance in Atlanta, Jay? You think we're still going to see strong performance?
Yeah, as with the rest of the country, I think it's going to be selective. You look at the urban areas, we're a few years into heavy supply numbers, and it's not going to get particularly lighter anytime soon. And so I would, if I'm a owner-operator there, I would expect to see pretty flat rent growth over the next year or so. Out in the right kind of suburbs, in the Roswells and the Alpharettas, the Sandy Springs, et cetera, I think you're still going to see good numbers. I mean, there's a lot of demand in those areas. The jobs are good in those areas. The demographics are good, and there's not a lot of supply coming in due to those issues I referenced earlier. I think the question mark is going to be, the rest of that metro area as we get into some of the more outlying suburbs and more to the south and to the east, how these kind of areas are going to do. This is what really drove Atlanta up, but that's when you get to more of these working class jobs and maybe potentially affordability issues. And so I think you could make a case either way for how that goes, but I think you are going to see a little bit of slowdown in how well those other suburban areas can do.
Right. And when you're looking to invest in multifamily or build, and you're looking at different cities around the country, I guess one of the things you want to look at, obviously, is population growth, right, and job growth. And Atlanta, sure, the outlook for Atlanta is very strong.
Absolutely. But again, I think it's shifted where, you look back 10, 20 years ago, everybody in the South, they graduated from college, you wanted to go to Atlanta. Now you got competition for not only the people, but also the jobs from places like Charlotte and Raleigh, or Orlando and Nashville. And so I think what's happened is that you're starting to see more selective growth as a more mature city, where if you're in those, the key employment corridors, you're up the 400 corridor, downtown, midtown, Buckhead, you're still going to see that those tailwinds are not going to change. It's going to be a matter of keeping up with supply in some of those urban spots. Again, I think the question is really going to be, how much a more mature market that Atlanta is today can really do for the more blue collar portions of the metro.
Yeah, well, good point. So, Jay, what would you expect to see then for cap rates for multifamily properties around Metro Atlanta, as far as a trend, and or maybe how our cap rate trends might compare, to the U.S. market?
Well, certainly the urban spots. I mean, you're seeing, and in the more attractive suburban areas, I mean, you're seeing, record low cap rates. Get into the fours, maybe even lower. And obviously, out other parts of the market, it could be still in the sixes. So there's still, definitely a big spread there. But I think Atlanta is very similar to the rest of the country in that way. And so I think for investors in Atlanta and people looking to get in Atlanta, because certainly there's a lot of interest with the rumors of Amazon maybe looking at Atlanta. And of course, every city thinks that's going to happen, but Atlanta seems to have as good a chance as anybody. And so for investors eyeing Atlanta, I think that the value add strategy is going to make a lot of sense. Trying to take, in these really good sub-markets, trying to look at stuff built 10, 15, 20 years ago and doing a value add that puts your rent still, 15, 20% below the newest stuff and still having a pretty nice piece of property. And so that's where I would really suggest there could be opportunity right now.
Okay. And what would you leave our audience in Atlanta, Jay, as far as a tip related to if you're a multifamily developer, or maybe you're an investor, or maybe you're an owner kind of trying to time the market?
Well, time in the market's tough, but I would just suggest, be open to different opportunities. Being able to, if you've always been an urban, don't be scared of that deal in some of those really good suburban areas just because the cap rate seems low. It's probably still better than what it is in downtown and midtown. And what we're seeing a lot of times in places like Atlanta is that your people who are very urban focused are scared off by pricing that really isn't that bad in the suburbs compared to where it is in the urban core. Conversely, if you are more suburban focused, being able to look at where the right value add strategies make sense. Obviously, Atlanta built a lot of product in the past cycles, and a lot of that has not been upgraded yet. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity there if you get the right location.
Right. Great tip, Jay. Thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Michael.
And thanks for joining us. And if you'd like more information about the Atlanta market, a particular submarket, a particular property, you're invited to reach out to us. Also, comment below. And thanks for joining us until we see you next time.